Concept-based inquiry in the sciences. A grade 8 physics teacher walks into class on a Wednesday morning carrying 2 cans of soda. The cans are exactly the same brand. The cans are exactly the same size, 330 milliliters each. They look identical. He places them on the lab bench in front of the room. Next to them is a large transparent tank, half filled with cold water. He does not give a lecture. He does not write a definition on the board. He does not announce a topic. He just says, I'm going to drop these 2 cans into the water. They look identical. Same brand, same size, same volume. With your partner, predict. Do they both float, both sink, or do they behave differently? The class predicts. Most students vote both will do the same thing. A few hold out for difference. He picks up the cans. He drops them in. One floats, one sinks. The class erupts. There are actual gasps. The students lean forward. They start arguing with each other. They want to know why. The teacher says nothing. He waits. He lets the question grow. This is concept-based inquiry in the sciences. Phenomenon first, definition last. Children see something that contradicts what they would expect. The contradiction creates a question they must answer. From that single question, the science unfolds. The science trap. Let me describe what almost certainly happened in your science education. The teacher opened the textbook. The textbook said, density is defined as mass per unit volume. The formula is rho equals m over v. The teacher wrote the formula on the board. The teacher gave examples. Wood is less dense than water. Steel is more dense than water. Therefore, wood floats. Steel sinks. Here is a worksheet. Calculate the density of these 6 objects. There will be a quiz on Friday. You learned the formula. You did the calculations. You passed the quiz. And you walked out of the lesson genuinely puzzled about why 100,000-ton steel ship floats. Because steel is denser than water. And ships are made of steel. And yet they float. None of it added up. But you did not say anything because school does not reward you for being confused. So you held the contradiction silently in your head and you moved on. That is the science trap. Definitions first, phenomena second. Vocabulary memorized before any contact with the real world that the vocabulary describes. Students leave with words they cannot connect to anything they have actually seen. And here is what gets lost. The wonder, the why, the thing that made the great scientists in history pick up a piece of equipment and start tinkering in the first place. We have taken the most curious discipline humans ever invented and turned it into a vocabulary list. Concept-based inquiry. Science says, start with the world. Start with something happening. Start with something that does not fit. Let the question be the engine, the move that changes everything. Here is the move. In every concept-based inquiry science lesson, the sequence is reversed. Phenomenon first, question second, investigation third, definition fourth. Let me say that again because it is the heart of this chapter. In traditional science teaching, the teacher writes the definition first and the children apply it. In CBI science, the children see the phenomenon first, struggle to explain it, investigate it with their own hands, and the definition appears at the end as a label for an idea they have already built. We have a name for the kind of provocation that does this. We call them discrepant events. A discrepant event is something that happens in front of children that contradicts what they would predict. 2 identical looking cans, one of which floats and one of which sinks, is a discrepant event. A balloon that gets bigger when you put it in the freezer is a discrepant event. An ice cube that sinks in alcohol is a discrepant event. Each one creates a question that the children genuinely want answered. From that question, you teach. In your next science lesson, instead of opening with a definition, open with something that should not happen. Resist the urge to explain. Wait 60 seconds. Watch what their minds do in that silence. Their minds will start asking questions. That is the doorway you have been looking for. I'm going to walk you through 4 worked examples now. One from kindergarten, one from grade 7, one from grade 8, one from grade 10. By the end, you will have a clear picture of how this works at every level. And then I will say a word about the diploma years, where the same move deepens rather than thins. Worked example 1. Living and non-living in kindergarten. The children are sitting on a carpet. The teacher places 3 things on a small table in front of them. A potted plant, a toy car, a grey pebble. She says, I have 3 friends here today. The plant, the car, the pebble, one of them is alive. Which one? Show me with a thumb. Point at the one that is alive. Every child points at the plant. The teacher asks a few children how they know. The answers come out. It is green. It grows. We water it. The teacher smiles and says, good detectives. We are going to test those ideas. She lays out 6 picture cards, 3 on a yes side, 3 on a no side. The yes side has a big tree with leaves, a puppy, and a laughing baby. The no side has a grey rock, a toy car, and a fluffy cloud. She says, these 3 on the yes side are alive. These 3 on the no side are not alive. Be a science detective. What do all the yes ones do that all the no ones do not do? The children sit in pairs. Each pair gets a green sticky note. They draw or write one thing alive things do. They stick the notes on a big chart. The notes start to cluster. Alive things grow. Alive things eat. Alive things drink. Alive things move on their own. Alive things make babies. The teacher reads the cluster and circles the 4 main ideas. She titles them Our Rules for Alive. Then she does something subtle and important. She brings out 4 mystery cards. Fire, a seed, a robot dog, a river. She holds up the fire card. Use our rules. Is fire alive? The class explodes. It moves. It eats wood. It grows. The teacher writes those on the board. Then she pauses. Does fire make babies? Does a flame from a candle become a new candle? Silence. No. The children look at each other. One says, then fire is not alive, even though it moves. The teacher writes the verdict. Then the seed. It does not move. It is small and hard. But then, if we put it in soil and water it, will it grow into a plant? A child shouts, yes. Then is it alive? Yes. The seed is alive, even though it looks dead. The robot dog. It moves. It barks. But does it eat, drink, grow, make puppies? No, 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 no. The robot is not alive. The river. It moves. It is wet. But does it grow on its own? Does it have babies? No. The river is not alive. By the end of the lesson, these 4-year-olds have built the criteria of life themselves, not memorized them, built them. And when the teacher shows them a picture of a mushroom and asks, tell the alien, is this alive? The children give thumbs up and reasons. It grows on a log. It probably makes baby mushrooms. Notice what just happened. The teacher did not start with a definition of life. She did not say, living things have 7 characteristics. They are MR-HRGen, movement, respiration, sensitivity, homeostasis, reproduction, growth, excretion, nutrition. Nothing like that. The children sorted things into alive and not alive. The mystery cards forced them to refine their criteria. The mushroom transfer proved the criteria travel. And there is a pitfall here. A big one. Do not give the criteria first. The mushroom test only works if the children built the rules. If you tell them, alive things grow, eat, breathe, they memorize 4 words and still struggle with a seed. Worked example 2. The finch beaks in grade 7. Now move up to a grade 7 biology classroom. The teacher puts an image on the board. 4 bird species from the Galapagos Islands. The large ground finch with a thick crushing beak. The cactus finch with a long pointed beak. The warbler finch with a small thin beak. The woodpecker finch holding a stick. She says, these 4 birds all descend from one ancestor that flew to the Galapagos 2 million years ago. Same genus, Same island chain. Look at their beaks. With your partner, propose a reason they ended up so different. One sentence. Hypotheses go up. Many of them are Lamarckian. The birds stretched. They needed the beak, so it grew. They wanted to eat different food. This is the misconception we are going to dismantle. Now the teacher moves the class into a simulation. Each student becomes a bird. Each picks one tool, tweezers, chopsticks, a plastic spoon, or hands only. On the table in front of them are three food sources: small sunflower seeds, long gummy worms, a wide dish of water that has to be scooped. She runs three 60-second rounds. In round one, the food is seeds. In round two, it is worms. In round three, it is water. The rule is simple. One hand only. Use the tool only. Move the food into your stomach cup. Birds with fewer than 5 items per round starve. Record. The data emerges fast. The tweezers dominate at seeds. They starve at water. The spoons dominate at water. They starve at seeds. The chopsticks shine at worms. The hands are terrible at everything except occasionally grabbing big chunks. Now the class data is pooled. The teacher writes the averages on the board. She asks one question. If only seeds existed on an island forever, which tool would dominate after 10 generations? Which would go extinct? The children answer. Tweezers would dominate. Spoons would go extinct. Now she pushes them harder. Did your tweezers change shape during the game? Did they grow longer? Did they evolve? The children laugh. No, the tweezers stayed exactly the same. There it is. The conceptual move. The individual bird does not change. The population shifts because some variations survive and reproduce while others do not. This is selection. This is what Darwin actually proposed. The teacher writes on the board. Organisms with variations best suited to environmental demands survive and reproduce more, shifting populations over generations. Then she gives them a transfer task. A small lizard species colonizes an island where the only food is insects living deep inside narrow rock cracks. What variation will become more common over generations? Which lizards will be selected out? What might the population look like in 1,000 years? The children write their predictions. They use the words variation, selection, generations. The strong responses go like this. Lizards in the founding population vary. Some have slightly longer, thinner snouts. Lizards with longer, narrower snouts can reach insects in cracks. They eat more, survive better, reproduce more. Over generations, the average snout length grows longer. After 1,000 years, the population might look like a different species. But no individual lizard ever changed its own snout. That is the lesson. Selection is not change in an individual. Selection is shift in a population. The simulation made it inevitable in the children's bodies before the words ever appeared. The pitfall here. Do not let children say, the bird changed its beak. Population shift is not individual change. Challenge it every time. Otherwise, the Lamarckian misconception hardens for life. The phrase that breaks it is the one the teacher used. Did your tweezers change shape during the game? No, but the tweezer population dominated. Worked example 3, the 2 soda cans in grade 8. Now we come back to that grade 8 physics class with the cans of soda. Let me tell you what happens next. After the gasps die down, the teacher says, I'm not going to tell you why. With your partner, 90 seconds. Propose a hypothesis. Then propose one measurement we could make to test your hypothesis. The most common hypothesis is mass. The regular can is heavier. Students propose weigh both cans. The teacher picks up a kitchen scale. Weigh the regular can. 370 grams. Weigh the diet can. 330 grams. Difference about 40 grams. The teacher writes on the board, same volume, 330 milliliters. different mass. The regular can has about 39 grams of sugar dissolved into the same volume of water. That mass is hiding inside. Then she shows 6 objects on the board. 3 float in water: a wooden log, an ice cube, the Diet Cola can. 3 sink in water: a marble, the regular cola can, a steel bolt. She asks, what is the same about everything that floats? What is the same about everything that sinks? It is not mass alone. The steel bolt is much lighter than the log. It is not volume alone. The marble is smaller than the ice cube. What is it? The children figure it out gradually. Something about how packed it is. Mass per size, mass per volume, echo their language, introduce the term density, mass per unit volume. Then the formula appears. Rho equals mass over volume. But notice the order. The phenomenon came first. The question came first. The reasoning came first. The formula is the tool for measuring a property the children have already named. Now they investigate. Each group gets 4 objects: a marble, a wax piece, a flat piece of aluminium foil, a crumpled piece of aluminium foil. Same piece but crumpled. They measure mass. They measure volume by water displacement. They calculate density. They predict float or sink. They test. The marble sinks. The wax floats. The flat foil sometimes floats on surface tension. The crumpled foil sinks. Same material, different configuration, different result. Now comes the bridge. The teacher asks, why does the steel ship float when steel sinks? The children think. Then someone says, because of the air inside it. The whole thing together is less dense than water. Yes, the ship's average density, including the air in the hull, is less than water, even though the steel itself is not. Then the transfer. 3 predictions. Will a watermelon density 0.97 float in fresh water? What if you drop it in the Dead Sea, where the water density is 1.24? A ship is loaded with cargo until it sinks lower. At what point will it sink? Why does an ice cube float in water but sink in ethanol? The strong responses use the language of relationship. The watermelon floats in fresh water because its density is just below water's. In the Dead Sea, the surrounding fluid is much denser, so the watermelon floats even higher. The ship floats as long as the average density of steel plus air inside the hull is less than water. The ice cube sinks in ethanol because ethanol is less dense than the ice. Floating is not about the object alone. It is always object versus fluid. That is the lesson. Density is not a number. Density is a relationship between an object and the fluid it is in. The 2 soda cans were the doorway, the pitfall. Do not lead with the formula rho equals m over v. The formula is a tool for measuring a property. Students must first need to measure. Lead with the cans. Then the question. Then the formula as the answer. Worked example 4. Climate as a system in grade 10. Now move up to a grade 10 integrated science classroom. The teacher plays a 90-second video clip. The clip shows the Arctic sea ice extent from 1980 to today. The white ice cap shrinks visibly. The year ticks up. The ice extent in million square kilometers drops on the right side of the screen. She does not narrate. She lets the children watch in silence. When the clip ends, she asks one question. The ice loss did not happen evenly. From 1980 to 2000, it was slow. From 2000 to today, it has accelerated. Why does loss speed up rather than continue at the same rate? Take 90 seconds with your partner. The children hypothesize. Then she gives them 8 evidence cards. Atmospheric carbon dioxide, global temperature, Arctic sea ice extent, ice albedo, permafrost methane, ocean acidification, forest dieback, ocean currents. She asks them to sort each card into 3 piles. Causes, the things humans have done. effects, the things that result. Feedback loops, the things that, when they happen, make more of the original cause. Groups argue. Some cards go in two piles. Most groups discover that ice albedo, permafrost methane, forest dieback, and the ocean current slow down belong in both the effect column and the feedback column. Now the teacher names what they have discovered. A feedback loop. There are two kinds. A negative feedback loop is self-stabilizing, like a thermostat that turns the heater off when the room gets warm. A positive feedback loop is self-amplifying, like a microphone that screeches louder and louder. She gives an example. Ice melts. More dark ocean is exposed. More heat is absorbed. More ice melts. That is a positive feedback loop. The ice loss accelerates because the loss feeds back to cause more loss. Now the children build their own causal loop diagrams. Each group gets a large sheet of paper. They write each phenomenon as a note. They draw arrows. Red arrows for increases, blue arrows for decreases. They find the closed loops, the loops that come back to where they started. They label each loop as plus or minus, amplifying or stabilizing. After 15 minutes, the diagrams are full of arrows. 4 major positive feedback loops emerge. The ice albedo loop, the permafrost methane loop, the forest carbon dioxide loop, the ocean acidity loop. The teacher introduces one more idea. A tipping point, a threshold past which the system locks itself into a new state. Like a ball at the top of a hill, pushed, it accelerates into a new valley. Hard to roll back up. Then she sets the transfer task. The Amazon rainforest absorbs about 5% of human carbon dioxide emissions and recycles its own water through the trees. If about 25% of the forest is lost, scientists believe the system passes a tipping point. Not enough trees to maintain the local water cycle. The forest dries, fires spread. The rainforest converts to savanna. Currently, the loss is around 17%. Draw a causal loop diagram showing what happens past the tipping point. Identify which loops are positive. Explain in 5 to 7 sentences why the transition might be irreversible. The strong responses go like this. Past 25% deforestation, the Amazon loses enough trees that local water recycling drops. Drier air, fewer clouds, less rain. Drier conditions kill more trees and fuel fires. This is a positive feedback loop. Deforestation drives, drier climate drives, more forest death drives, drier climate. The system passes a threshold and converts to a new equilibrium savanna that no longer supports rainforest. The shift is hard to reverse because the new savanna is too dry to regrow rainforest, even if humans plant trees. Decisions today have more leverage than decisions made later. Because once we cross the tipping point, the system locks itself into a new state. That is the lesson. Climate is not a list of problems. Climate is a coupled system. Positive feedback amplifies. Tipping points lock in new equilibria. Students leave with a cognitive scaffolding to think about any complex system. Ecosystems, economies, social movements, mental health. Once you have the lens, you see feedback loops everywhere. The pitfall. Do not let the class become political. The science of feedback and tipping points is the conceptual goal. The political conversation is valid, but belongs in a separate individuals and societies session. Keep this lesson on system mechanics. A word about the diploma years. The same move scales. Let me give you 3 quick glimpses. In biology, take homeostasis. The traditional approach defines homeostasis as the maintenance of stable internal conditions. The CBI approach opens with a paradox. A patient with a fever feels freezing and shivers even though their core temperature is rising. Why is a hotter person shivering? Students cannot explain it with a standard model. They must invent the idea of a moving set point. The body has detected an infection and shifted its target temperature upward. The shivering is the body's correction toward the new set point, not toward the old room temperature. By the end of the lesson, students grasp that the apparent symptom of an illness is often the body's correction, not the disturbance. Fever is the body working. Shivering is the body working. Thirst is the body working. In biology, again, take evolution. The traditional approach lays out Darwin's argument as a textbook narrative. The CBI approach lays out multiple lines of evidence and asks students to converge. Fossil sequences, comparative anatomy, embryonic development, biogeography, molecular evidence. Each line on its own could be doubted. All 5 lines pointing at the same conclusion cannot. Evolution is taught not as a story, but as a triangulation, as what scientists call a consilience of evidence. In physics, take quantum mechanics. The traditional approach hands students an equation. The CBI approach runs the double-slit experiment in front of them. A single electron, fired one at a time at a screen with 2 slits, builds up an interference pattern over time, as if the electron passed through both slits at once. Then you set up a detector that watches which slit the electron goes through. The interference pattern collapses. The act of observation changes the result. Students do not memorize an equation. They wrestle with the question of what the equation describes. Probability, wave-particle duality, the strange dependence of result on observation. In every case, the principle is the same. Start with the phenomenon. Let the phenomenon ask the question. Build the explanation from the data. The nature of science. Thread. There is a thread that runs through every CBI science lesson, and I want to name it clearly. The thread is the nature of science itself. Concept-based inquiry science teaches not just what we know. It teaches how we come to know. This matters. Most students leave school believing science is a list of established facts. The water cycle, the parts of a cell, the periodic table. They do not understand that every one of those facts was once a question, a guess, a controversy, a piece of evidence weighed against other pieces of evidence, a claim that won by being more useful than its rivals. When you teach by phenomena first, you preserve this. The children see the question being asked. They feel the not knowing. They participate in the figuring out. They make a guess, they test it, they refine it, they land on something. They notice that their classmates landed on something slightly different. They argue. They agree on a working explanation. This is the actual nature of science, not a list of established facts, a process of testing claims against the world, and the lab work shifts accordingly. Traditional labs verify what students were told. The lab handout tells them what the result should be. They follow steps. They confirm. They write up. The lab adds nothing to their understanding. CBI labs are different. CBI labs investigate questions students raised. The result is not known in advance. The students record what they observe. They argue about what it means. They sometimes get surprising data. The surprising data is not a failure. The surprising data is the lesson. If you change nothing else about how you teach science, change this. Make one lab a year a CBI lab. Pose the question, hand them the equipment, step back, watch what happens. The action you can take tomorrow. Here is the single move. In your next science lesson, lead with a phenomenon that contradicts what students would expect. Not a definition, not a vocabulary list, not a textbook page, a phenomenon. 2 cans of soda that should both float or both sink, but one does each. A plant that grew in a dark cupboard, comparing it to a plant that grew on the windowsill. A piece of paper that catches fire under a magnifying glass and the sun. A heavy book and a feather dropped in a vacuum tube, hitting the floor at the same time. You do not need expensive equipment. You need something that produces the small word huh in a child's mouth. Drop the phenomenon. Wait. Do not explain. For at least 60 seconds, you say nothing. You let the children's faces do whatever they do. You watch the questions form. You hear them whispering. You see one child raise a hand and then put it down because they are still thinking. You honor the silence. Then you let them speak. You ask, what did you see? What do you think is happening? What measurement would help us figure this out? From their questions, you build the lesson. If you do this once, you will feel something rare in modern teaching. The room will tilt. The children will lean forward instead of leaning back. They will be in the science instead of being lectured at by the science. If you do it once a week, your students will start to expect science to be like this. They will start to bring you phenomena from home. The ice that sank in their drink, the fizz in the milk after they put the cereal in, the cat that landed feet down after falling off the bookshelf. Because they have learned that you teach by following the question wherever it leads. A 60-second recap. We started with 2 cans of soda. One floated, one sank. From that one moment, an entire physics lesson unfolded. We saw the same move in kindergarten, where 4-year-olds built the criteria for life themselves by sorting picture cards and arguing about whether fire is alive. We saw it in grade 7 biology, where children became finches with tweezers and chopsticks and discovered in their bodies that selection acts on populations across generations and not on individuals within a lifetime. We saw it in grade 8 physics, where the 2 cans led to density as a relationship, not as a formula. We saw it in grade 10 integrated science, where 8 evidence cards became a causal loop diagram, became an understanding of tipping points and the irreversibility of certain transitions. The single piece of advice I want to leave you with is this: phenomenon before definition, question before explanation, investigation before vocabulary, always. In chapter 16, we move from the sciences to language and literature. We will start with an old fable about a fox and some grapes. We will watch a grade 6 teacher discover what happens when she stops asking, what is this story about? And starts asking, what is this story really about? From that one small adjustment, the difference between topic and theme becomes visible. And from that difference, the practice of teaching literature as a craft, rather than as a collection of remembered books, becomes possible. See you there.